Right, okay, I'm going to go through a series of tasks. They're all the same tasks as our screenshot on the PowerPoint, and the idea is that you'll work through these in order, watch the demos, and then have a go yourself. The plan is that you will work from the beach huts image, so we'll all work on the same image for learning, and then once you have had a go at using the different tools, then you will have a go on your own images. So you need to practice with the beach huts before you move on to your own images. So you're going to open the beach huts image. We'll do a file open as opposed to a file new, create new, because we want to open this file. So we can either do that here, file open, or you'll see here, create new or open. Now I have recently opened the beach huts file, which we're going to work on, so it's also in my recents. But just for the sake of showing you, I will click open and I'm going to find it. It's on my desktop at the moment, but you'll find it in the J drive and you're going to open that file like so. So that's opening a file, okay, and we're all going to open the beach huts file to start with. So I'm going to run through the first set of selection tools that might be of use and they might be of interest to know about. The idea of Photoshop is that you're going to select specific pixels to change their color. So we can see pixels in Photoshop. If we zoom right in, we can see these little squares. They're the pixels, and the way that Photoshop works is by allowing you to make changes to the color of those pixels, and that's it as in its most simplest basic form. So what we want to be able to do and what Photoshop needs us to do is to tell it which pixels we want to change, basically, in order to be able to do that. So we can make selections using a range of selection tools. So on our left tool panel here, right at the top, we've got these marquee tools. There's a single row, a single column. I've never used these, a little bit pointless if you ask me, but they do exist. And then we've also got these rectangle, which does what it sounds like. We can make a square if we hold shift down. And we've got the ellipse tool, which does what it sounds like. It will make an ellipse or an oval, and if I hold shift down, it will make a circle. Now, what we need to remember is that Photoshop is wanting us to define where we would like to make any changes. So right now, I have made a selection, and the selection is indicated by these marching ants. Any changes that I want to make to the pixels, any color changes, anything I want to make a difference to, has to be within the marching ants to make to be able to make a change to it. So if I show you as an example, changing the hue or the color, it's only making changes inside that selection. So the idea is that you make your selection and then you make your changes. Okay, so that's using the basic select tools. Right, okay, so what we really need to think about is if we're making selections, we need to be specific if our selected area, the thing that we want to make changes to, isn't a nice circle or an ellipse or, you know, a square or a rectangle. So what we do need to be able to do is be more specific about the selection that we want to make in order that we want to make changes to whatever's inside it. So in this example, the first task that you're going to have a go at is selecting around just the beach huts. Now, the first thing I'm going to do before I start making any selections is I'm going to duplicate my background layer. The reason I'm going to do this is that if I make horrible, drastic, permanent changes to my background layer and then I accidentally press save, then I've made those changes and I can't go back on those. So it's just to save, I suppose, tears later. It's a good practice to just duplicate your background layer. So I'm right clicking and I'm selecting duplicate layer. Now you can change the name here, so I could call it, I mean, background copy seems sensible, but I could call it beach huts. I think that's what I'll call it, beach huts. Okay. The reason I'm calling it beach huts is because that's what it is in the picture, I guess. The idea is that it's not going to be called background, so that I don't confuse the two. The background should stay locked, so you can't make changes to it, and we'll turn the viewer off. So that's basically now we can ignore that layer. It's just there for purposes of mistakes being made later, potentially. So we're working on this layer, the beach huts layer. We can tell which layer we're working on because it goes a light grey colour. And we're going to use a different set of selection tools now, a more specific set of selection tools that we've got more control over than the marquee tools. So we've got this lasso, we've got the polygon lasso, and we've got the magnetic. I'm going to go for the polygon because that's the one I've got most control over. Okay, so that's the one I'd like you to use. So it looks like this, and it works a little bit like the pen tool in Illustrator in that you have to click, 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 click. So what you might find is that you will need to zoom in or out to be able to look to see, the detail of what you're trying to select. If you're zooming out, you can control minus, just like in Illustrator. If you're zooming in, you can control plus, just like in Illustrator. And what we're looking at are the pixels, and Photoshop works by changing the color of the pixels. So that's what we're attempting to do, is select a very specific set of these square pixels to change the colors. So I want to zoom out enough that I can see this grey background so I can get an overview of just these beach huts. If you zoom out too far and you don't want to zoom back in staggered stages, then Control 0 and you'll get another full screen. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out just maybe a tiny bit like this. So I've got my polygon lasso tool selected. I'm going to start from the right edge and work my way around, and I'm selecting just the beach huts, and the idea is that you select them as neatly as possible. So I'm going to start from the outside in the grey area, and I'm going to click, click, click. And the idea is that I try to get it as good as possible in the first selection, but I can tidy this selection up post joining together. So you're going to click, click, click. I've gone outside the edge of the frame there again because I want it just to go up to the edge, and it will only go as far as the edge of the file, as indicated by the dark grey area. Now, it's up to you to decide around the sand how much you want to keep and how much you don't want to keep. I can see that's a bit messy there, but I'm going to join this together. So just as it gets close to the end, you can see the little circle appear on the tool. That's to show me that if you click again, you're going to join this selection together. That's exactly what I want to do. As indicated by the marching ants, I now have a selected area. If I accidentally double click now somewhere else, the selection will disappear. You can't get it back. You just have to start over. So there's a little bit of a sort of frustrating element to this if that happens, but you learn very quickly not to do that too many times, and then you don't do it anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my zoom tool here, another way of zooming in, because I want to just have a look at these areas around here where I know I was quite loose and I wasn't very specific with my selection. So what I want to do at this point is I want to either add or remove from my selected pixels, because these are the bits that I want to make the changes to, but I don't want any sky or tree in my selection. So at the moment I've got some sky here and some trees from the background. I don't want that. I want to be neater and tidier than that. So I'm going to go back into my select tools. Now, if I hold Alt down, you can see a little minus appear on my tool. If I hold Shift down, you can see a little plus appear. So Shift will add to my selection and Alt will remove from my selection. So just to remind us, we're going to zoom out so we can see what's going on. Zoom out slowly by the looks of things. So we're going to zoom out. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to remove from my selection because I don't want sky in my selected area. So my selected area is everything inside the marching ants, which is the beach huts. So I want to remove the bits of sky I've accidentally selected here when I wasn't zoomed in and I couldn't see what I was doing. So I'm going to use my marquee tool. I'm going to hold Alt down because what I want to be able to do is to remove these parts of the selection. Now, obviously, once we're zoomed in, we can really get to the detail of which bits we are or aren't selecting. I'm going like this. Now, what I need to do is I need to join that selection together. So join it together. I've removed some of that sky and I've made that much neater around that area of whatever bit of the beach hut that is, like a little chimney detail, little feature. So I can see here I've got a bit too much tree in the background. So again, I can remove from my selection here. I'm just going to join my path together and remove those extra areas. If I've accidentally see here, if I was being really particular, if I've accidentally gone into the beach huts, I've eaten into the beach huts with my selected, and I need to add to that, I want to add that little bit of red to my selected area, then I'll hold Shift down on my keyboard and I can just make a selection around those red pixels and it will add to whatever's been selected. So the idea is at this stage, you're going to go round the detail and you're going to find anywhere where you've gone wrong. Like for instance here, I'm going to need to add to my selection here because I can see that the beach huts, the roof there isn't quite right. So I'm going to add that in. And so it goes. So I want you to go around your beach huts. I want you to get them as neatly selected as you possibly can. That's the first job.